Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to never miss any update from RAU'S IAS Study Circle. Join the only official Telegram channel of RAU'S IAS Study Circle to get the relevant materials and important updates. Hello and welcome to the Daily News Simplified, the what, why and how of the newspaper analysis. So today we are going to discuss The Hindu Delhi edition dated 10th December 2021. The topics to be discussed have been displayed on your screen and the timestamping of the same has been provided in the description box below. So moving on to our first topic that has appeared on the text and the context page. The topic is in relation to the concept of citizenship engraved in our constitution. And the context of this topic is very interesting because as all of you must be knowing that recently the farmer protest has been ended and the farm laws have been repealed. So the context says that with the contentious farm laws repealed, the discussions turned to the second most politically and legally resisted legislation of recent times, that was Citizenship Amendment Act 2019. Now we are all aware about the protests which were held across the India, especially in Delhi and especially the Shaheen Bagh protest. So this topic is in this very relation that with the repeal of the farm laws, now the focus has been shifted towards the repealing of the Citizenship Amendment Act. However, this topic needs a detailed discussion from multiple dimensions. But today's this very article has analyzed this topic in detail from the historical perspective that what were the dimensions which were taken up by the Constituent Assembly members. And that is why the topic reads that a citizenship question was arised in the Constituent Assembly also. And several experts including Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, including Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru and others have opined their views. There were several arguments, counter-arguments, theses, antitheses, and finally it led to a synthesis which in the form of Indian Constitution we have it today. So this topic falls under the UPSC scheme of syllabus General Studies Paper 2 in the section of the Constitution and Polity. The micro section is the historical underpinnings of the Indian Constitution. So that is why in today's particular session we will analyze the question of citizenship in the context of Citizenship Amendment Act and the views which were expressed in the Constituent Assembly. Now first we will analyze that what is the present status of citizenship in our constitution which is relevant from the Citizenship Amendment Act's point of view. So presently Article 5 to 11 in the Indian Constitution deals with the Indian citizenship, that who can become a citizen of India, what are the various means to acquire the citizenship and under what grounds that citizenship can be terminated. So all these things are there under the Indian Constitution Article 5 to 11. But this very topic quotes two very important articles, that is Article 5 and Article 7 from the perspective of the debates which were there in the Constituent Assembly. So to understand those debates and all the arguments, first we need to understand that what is exactly there in Article 5 and Article 7 of the Indian Constitution. So the Article 5 deals with the citizenship at the commencement of the Constitution, and this article says that every person who has a domicile in the territory of India and was first born in the territory of India, second, whose parents were born in the territory of India, and third, who has been ordinarily resident in the territory of India for not less than 5 years preceding such commencement of Constitution shall be a citizen of India. So this means there are four things under this article. One, the person should have a domicile. Second, either he or she should be born in the territory of India, or his or her parents should be born in the territory of India, or he or she has been an ordinarily resident in the territory of India. But on which date? The date of 5 years preceding the commencement of such an constitution. So this means that Article 5 tells us that who exactly can be a citizen of Indian state. Now Article 7 is in relation to the rights of the citizenship of certain migrants to Pakistan. Now this article says that a person who on this particular date, that is 1st March 1947, has migrated from the territory of India to the Pakistan shall not be deemed to be a citizen of India. So now what is the basic difference between Article 5 and Article 7? Article 5 tells you that who is a citizen of India. And Article 7 tells us that who is not a citizen of India. So that is why this article says that the person who has migrated on the first day of March 1947 to Pakistan shall not be deemed to be a citizen of India. However, this very article makes one proviso also. That is, this article says that the person who has migrated to the Pakistan once but has returned to the territory of India under a permit for resettlement or a permanent return issued by or under the authority of any law, that person will be deemed to have migrated to the territory of India after the 19th day of July 1948. So Article 5 and Article 7 tell us that who is a citizen of India and who is not a citizen of India. Now we shall look at the arguments and the counter arguments which were there in the Constituent Assembly, especially with regard to the Article 5 and Article 7. The citizenship question has been one of the most grueling tasks confronted by the drafting committee as admitted by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. He moved a set of consolidated amendments to the citizenship provisions of the original draft, and he said that the task had been given to the drafting committee is such a headache and multiple drafts were prepared and destroyed before arriving at a consensus which may satisfy most people if not all. So this tells us the complexities involved in deciding the rules regarding the citizenship of India, that who will be a citizen and who will not be a citizen. Now, as we all know that Indian partition is such an event in the history, not only in India's history but the South Asian and global history, that was fraught with multiple challenges at a single point of time. And in that particular period, when our country was divided on the basis of religion, when we were facing war, when British were leaving us in a haphazard situation, and when the people were not aware that which side do they belong to, especially those people who were in the frontier areas, that is the border areas of Punjab. Just imagine the Herculean task of making the constitution and deciding that who will be the citizen of India. And that is why Dr. B.R. Ambedkar has quoted this particular task as a headache. However, under this session, we will discuss the arguments and the counter arguments provided by multiple members regarding these two particular articles, that is Article 5 and Article 7. Now, the major criticism for the Article 5 was that the Article 5 was lacking in exclusive and preferential treatment on religious lines. There were various members, including Dr. P.S. Deshmukh, who were of the firm opinion that because our country was being divided on the religious lines and the Pakistan was being made as a theocratic state and not a secular state, that is why we must take care of the Hindus and the Sikh residing in the territory which now will be called as Pakistan. Now, the people who supported Dr. P.S. Deshmukh firmly believed that India is a natural land for Hindus and Sikhs, and that is why they said that Hindus and Sikhs who are not the citizen of other state should automatically become the citizen of Indian territory. So this argument still holds ground because when there was a debate around the Citizenship Amendment Act 2019, this particular argument that India is a natural land of Hindus and Sikhs was being raised by several proponents of this Amendment Act. So that argument was not new at all because the base of that argument is there in the debates of the Constituent Assembly also. So that is why there were several members who opposed the Article 5 of the draft which was prepared by the drafting committee on the line that there should be the preferential treatment on religious lines. Now we need to understand the major criticisms of the Article 7. As we discussed that Article 7 was made to tell that who will not be a citizen, and who will not be a citizen, that person who has migrated to Pakistan on first day of March 1947. But let me remind you that this very article also provided a proviso that those people who have first migrated to Pakistan and have come back to India under a permit for resettlement or permanent return issued by some authority, those people will be dealt separately. So that is why the Constituent Assembly, when they were discussing about this particular article, they said that we need to look the migrants at two levels. There are first generation migrants who have migrated from India to the Pakistan, but there are those migrants also who have first migrated to Pakistan and then have returned to India. So few members of the Constituent Assembly said that why are you treating such members on a different platform? Because once they have migrated to Pakistan, leaving aside India, In their belief, they have kicked India on that particular day when they decided to migrate to Pakistan. And if on reaching the Pakistan, they believe, for example, the standard of living in Pakistan which they will get will be far below than the standard of living which they will get in India. The respect which they will get in Pakistan will be below the respect which they will command in India. On these particular grounds, if those people come back to India, then what is the loyalty of those people towards India? Because earlier they have kicked India and decided to go to Pakistan. So these were the arguments given by some of the members. But again, as we have said, that these arguments also had counter arguments within the Constituent Assembly, and now we will look at those counter arguments which were given against these two primary arguments. Now, the first counter argument to the necessity of the preferential treatment which is to be given on religious lines was that one, the people like P.S. Deshmukh have ignored the other communities because they gave their entire focus on two communities, that is Hindus and Sikh. Now, what about other communities which were also being persecuted and faced a huge threat in Pakistan? For example, Jains, for example, Buddhists, for example, Christians. So, why to ignore other communities? The second important counter argument was that India since beginning was viewed as a secular state. So this notion that India and Pakistan were divided on the religious lines is not true. It is a half truth because it was only Pakistan which was being made as a theocratic state on the basis of religion, that is Islam. But on the other hand, India was not being made on the religious lines because India was being viewed as a secular state by our founding father. So if India is a secular state, how can we grant citizenship on the basis of religion as was advocated by Dr. P.S. Deshmukh? And the third important thing, as we have already discussed, that Indian partition was not a very simple partition. It was one of the most complex events in the entire global history. The frontier areas of Punjab were facing so much issues at the same time that we could not simply define the citizenship on the basis of a preferential treatment towards some religion and ignore the other communities. At that time, it was believed that we need to understand all the complexities involved in those frontier areas and we not oversimplify that complex reality. So that is why finally it was agreed that citizenship will not be granted on the religion basis, it will be open to all depending upon the legal considerations which will be laid down. Now coming to the counter argument of this second statement that said that once the people who have migrated to Pakistan kicking the India, what is the need to accommodate those people? So as a counter argument for this assertion, people said that first we need to understand that this migration was not out of their free will. This was a panic driven migration. Several people migrated to Pakistan just because of a panic and they didn't have any clear intention to settle in Pakistan. So that is why when the people didn't have clear intention, how can we judge those people that they kicked India and they selected Pakistan? The second important thing was that Dr. B.R. Ambedkar said that the basic tenet of this particular article, as we discussed, was to tell that who is not a citizen of India. So that is why they need to exclude those people who have migrated to Pakistan on this particular date, that they will not be the citizen of India. Hence, we need to understand that this article is not talking about providing the citizenship. The basic intent of this article is to refuse the citizenship who have migrated to Pakistan. And the third important dimension was the legal dimension, that because there was an agreement between India and Pakistan to accommodate few people in their respective territories. So that is why it was a legal sanction also to provide certain provisions and not make a complete blanket ban on the people who have migrated to Pakistan and have left India. So that is why in the final constitution, the draft which were prepared by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar and the drafting committee retained the Article 5 and Article 7 in the Indian Constitution. So summing up the entire topic in brief once again, this topic has appeared on the text and the context page in relation to the Citizenship Amendment Act 2019. Now, this topic gives us a historical perspective, arguments, and statements given by some members of the Constituent Assembly, and the matter was discussed at that time in detail. So, this article talks in detail about two constitutional articles, that is, Article 5 and Article 7, which provide a broad contours of who can be a citizen of India and who will not be a citizen of India. Now, as the major criticism of these arguments, there were 2 points laid down in the Constituent Assembly. First, there were members who advocated that there should be a preferential religious treatment to the people who can become the citizen of India, because India is a natural land of Hindus and Sikhs, and they believe that Hindus and Sikhs will be persecuted in the new territory of Pakistan because Pakistan was created on religious lines. And the second argument was that why we are keeping those people who have first migrated to Pakistan and have returned to India on a different pedestal. But the counter arguments given by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, and other members were that because India is being viewed as a secular state, we cannot divide the people on the basis of lines. Second, why we are restricting to Hindus and Sikhs, and why we are ignoring the other communities. And third, the partition of India was a very complex in nature, and the solution to such complex problems cannot be that simple that we should define the citizenship just on the basis of religion. Because we need to understand that the migration from India to Pakistan was not out of free will, but it was a panic-driven migration without a clear intention. And that is why we need to take such things into consideration, and hence we should keep the citizenship neutral to religion and lay down the foundation of India in secular manner. So moving on to our next topic that has again appeared on the text and the context page. Now, this topic has appeared in the context of the Betwa River Interlinking Project. The context of this topic is that recently the Union Cabinet has approved the implementation of the Betwa River Interlinking Project at a cost of rupees 44,605 crore rupees, with the central funding of rupees 39,000 crore. Now, this topic falls under the General Studies Paper 3 in the micro section of Biodiversity and Environment. And that is because this topic has several environmental concerns which from time to time several environmental experts have raised. Since beginning, this project has been viewed as a serious concern from the environment perspective because of the various environmental issues at bay. So today we will discuss all those environmental issues which are there in this particular project. First of all, we need to know that where this project falls. As you can see, this is the Indian map, and this project lies in this particular region, that is the northern MP region and the southern UP region. This particular region is also called as Bundelkhand. And here you can see on the western side we have the Betwa river, and on the eastern side we have the Cane river. Now, by the physiography, this Bundelkhand region is a semi-arid region which face a huge water crunch. And if you differentiate between the nature of the Betwa and the Cane rivers, the point is that the Cane river has a surplus basin and Betwa has deficit basin. So that is why it was believed that why not to transfer the excess water from the Cane basin to the Betwa basin in order to balance the water requirements in both these areas. And that is why this river interlinking project was envisioned. And if you closely look at this particular diagram, you can see that the states involved in this particular project is UP and MP, and the beneficiary districts within the Bundelkhand region are Chhatarpur, Panna and Tikamgarh in MP, and Jhansi, Banda, Mahoba and Lalitpur in Uttar Pradesh. Now, it was estimated that around 6.5 lakh hectares of the area will receive the irrigational benefits, and around 13 lakh of the population in UP as well as MP will get a drinking water supply. Moreover, this project is also believed to generate around 78 megawatt of power. Further, this project is a part of the broader river interlinking project which aims to connect the 14 Himalayan rivers with 16 peninsular rivers. And these rivers will be connected with the help of 30 canals, and around 3,000 of the reservoirs are believed to be built. Moreover, the financial share borne between the center and states is in a ratio of 90:10. And that is why the 90% of the overall cost is to be borne by the central government. But despite all these benefits which we have discussed, there are several issues and concerns associated with this particular project. The first issue is that it is believed that this particular project will lead to a large scale human displacement because a huge area is believed to be submerged under this project. And from all those areas, the human population will be displaced. Further, this submergence of such a large tract of land also lead to another issue. It is estimated that out of 12,500 hectares of land which has to be submerged, around 9,000 hectares of land is the forest land. And that is why this submergence is harmful for the trees under this forest. Further, this submergence is also going to affect the Panna Tiger Reserve, which is there in the state of MP. And the ecologists have said that this Panna Tiger Reserve in recent years have performed very well in conserving the population of tigers as well as vultures. Now, these tigers and vultures, both the species, are facing the threats of extinction, and that is why it is necessary to preserve and conserve these species. But because of this project, a huge portion of Panna Tiger Reserve will be submerged under this link. Further, several climatologists have also led to a conclusion that there can be a deviation in the microclimate. And this deviation can further lead to the rainfall disruption. And as we have already discussed, that Bundelkhand region is a semi-arid region which already faces a huge scarcity of water. This further rainfall disruption can take that particular region up to the brink of the water war. And this microclimate will be destroyed because of this project. Further, other experts have also challenged the basic validity, the basic premise of this very project. They have asked that why we are depending upon the Cane River to supply surplus water to the deficit Betwa when we know that Cane itself is not a perennial river. Now, Cane is a peninsular river and it is seasonal in nature, entirely dependent upon rainfall. So, when Cane itself is not a perennial river, it is seasonal in nature, how can we claim that Cane will be sufficient enough to supply excess water to the Betwa, and this quantity of water will be sufficient to meet the demand of the population residing in that particular region? Now, the other issue is related to the level difference between Betwa and Cane. Now, physiographically, the level of the Cane River is below than the Betwa River. And therefore, if you have to transfer the water from Cane to Betwa, you have to lift the water. And for that, lifting pumps will be used. But these lifting pumps will in turn consume a lot of energy. And hence, again, it puts the question mark on this project from the ecological perspective. Further, the last point is related to the aquatic life. Now, because the natural flow of the river will be obstructed and diverted to some other region, it is believed that the aquatic life, which is not very tolerable to such deviations, will be destroyed. So that is why the experts have said that the cost benefit ratio of this particular project is not desirable, and there are multiple issues which overcome the expected benefits out of this project. And that is why the government must relook on this particular project from multiple dimensions, and it needs to balance the socio-economic desirability and ecological vulnerability. So our next topic has appeared on page number 5, and this topic is in context of the recent emerging bird flu in the district of Alapua. Now this district lies in the state of Kerala. The context of this news is that around 8,000 to 10,000 ducks were culled by the rapid response teams after the outbreak was confirmed. Now this topic fits under the UPSC scheme of syllabus under the section of the General Studies paper 3 and the micro section of Science and Technology. Now such factual questions are also important from the prelims point of view. For example, in 2015, UPSC asked a question in relation to the H1N1 virus. Now the question asked was that H1N1 virus sometimes mentioned in the news with reference to which one of the following diseases. So H1N1 virus is in relation to the swine flu. But as you can also see, bird flu is also there in option, and this bird flu is H5N1 virus. So that is why we need to be aware about the key facts related to such important viruses which are there in news repeatedly. So this topic is brief because here we just have to go through certain key facts regarding the bird flu. First is that it is also known as avian influenza, and this virus is found in wild birds. As we have discussed already that H5N1 is the name of the virus which is responsible for the avian influenza, and this virus is a type A virus. However, other than H5N1, there are other viruses like H7N2, H9N6 and others which reportedly are known to have led to avian influenza. Now the question is that are there any human infections also, or this virus is restricted to the birds? No, this virus is not restricted to the birds, and there have been human infections also. And most of the human infections are because of the direct contact. Now this direct contact can be with the infected bird, that is when the human comes in a contact with an infected bird, or the person comes in a contact with the contaminated surface or the contaminated air. Now, the people who are mainly dependent on poultry as their economic activity, those people are more vulnerable compared to other people. As of now, human to human transmissions are not rare, and sustained human to human transmission have no evidence. Majority of the symptoms of this virus is also common as they are in other viruses. If the impact is on a milder side, a person may develop a symptom of fever, cough, sore throat, muscle ache, etc. But if the impact is on intense side, there might be issues in respiratory and neurological systems. Now, there is one more interesting knowledge in this regard. According to the World Health Organization, more than half of the world's bird flu incidents take place in the Central Asian flyway. Now, you need to know that what exactly is the Central Asian flyway, that is CAF. Now, the world is divided into primarily 9 key flight paths. Now, these key flight paths are in relation to the migratory birds. The path which these birds take while migrating from one place to another, those are known as flyways. So as you can see in this particular diagram, this diagram represents the Central Asian flyway. So as you can see that this particular Central Asian flyway comprises around 30 countries, from breeding grounds in Siberia to wintering places across West Asia, South Asia and water bodies for lakhs of birds. And if you go by the state-wise analysis, for example, just in the state of Karnataka, there are around 622 water bodies. But as usual, the lack of comprehensive surveys to monitor the species and their populations have left gaps in the data, especially in the countries like India. And the experts say that conservation of water bodies should be prioritized not just for international migratory birds but for local bird population as well. So now is the time for the question of the day. The question asked yesterday was in relation to the National Unified USSD platform. There were two statements given and you had to find a correct statement out of these two statements. The statement 1 said that unlike the UPI, this system enables the person to transfer the funds without smartphone or internet connectivity. The statement 2 said that this payment system has been developed by National Payment Corporation of India. Now both the statements are factually correct and therefore the answer is option C. So today's question of the day is in relation to the Betwa interlinking project, and again there are two statements and you have to find the correct statement out of these two statements. The statement 1 says that it aims to resolve the water related issues in the Bundelkhand region, and statement 2 says that surplus water of the Betwa basin will be transferred to the Kane basin for this purpose.